everyone. My name is Kristina Jones. My stage name is Transparency, and transparency just comes from one of my best friends saying that transparency transforms the lives of others. And I truly do believe that our lives, our stories are transformational. So don't be afraid to share it, even if you have to share it in like third person, because someone somewhere who can actually benefit and actually, how can I say, benefit and change, or even take away the shame that they may have by just listening to your story. Um, I am a coach. I am a self discovery advocacy coach. I am also trauma informed care. My background is mainly social services. I'm a social work by trade. I am a job coach, job career development. My husband and I, we have a wonderful business. It's called Reaching Beyond the Break Career Development Services. Also, under that umbrella of services that we do provide, we have Suppressed Wounds Redemption and Recovery. And under that umbrella of business, that's where we have different workshops. We have workshops for women, Broken Girl, Whole Woman. That workshop will be restarting, I believe, July 17th, which is really, really awesome. Anyone interested in any of our services, please text the number on the screen, 202-888-7362.
I love that. So take us through one of your workshops and how do you help women deal with what they've gone through?
Yes, absolutely. So I don't know if you can really see it. Oh, it blurred out a little bit. But this workbook here, Broken Girl, Whole Woman, is a 6-week course workbook, Suppressed Wounds, Redemption, and Recovery. And I'll just read the little summary in the back. Broken Girl, Whole Woman workbook. This empowering workbook is designed for individuals who have experienced trauma or are navigating life's challenges. It provides a guided, excuse me, I'm blah, 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 blah. You don't have to take that part out though. It's just showing the human side of me, right? This provides a guided roadmap for healing and transformation. Through its pages, you'll rediscover your inner strength, reclaim your identity, and embrace the fullness of who you truly are. So, Terrain, it's a wonderful book. It's 6 weeks. I have little self-discovery notes at the end, and I also have some notes at the beginning that just states here, please write down your thoughts and feelings about your expectations of this lesson. This is really, it goes really, really deep. Um, I could just create a course online for people to take, but I like to go through it virtually so that you all can, whoever participates will know that I'm on this journey as well. Healing is a lifelong journey.
Yeah, I look at like the people that I know that have been sexually abused, and from the men and the women, it's interesting to see how so many of us react to it in a different way. And you have like the workshop, which is very beneficial. And I'm hoping that one day, well, two things I'm hoping. One, that this type of crime doesn't happen anymore, right? Like,
Yes.
I don't think it's that, it's at the point where there's enough awareness to at least start a conversation, but we need more awareness to maybe come up with more solutions for everyone. And I think these workshops and these programs, if we can get it where, if we could get it in the hands of everyone, I think it would be beneficial. Because I'll share a story. When I came in contact with someone that was sexually abused,
Mhm.
it was, I went on a date with her. This is many years ago, and I've shared this story a few times, but not to a lot of people. And to see how certain levels of intimacy would trigger her was kind of difficult to see, because you have someone that is sensitive to a situation and you're coming in new, you're coming in fresh. So you may not know, right? So there's a lot of people that maybe if you're in the moment and you're performing certain acts and you see her cry, I know there's some men out there, they'll be like, you know what, Christina, ha ha, I'm the man. You know, she must feel so good because these are tears of joy. But you don't realize that these are actually tears of pain. These are tears of trauma. And you have to be understanding of that. And also, you have to be appreciative of that. She may not, or he may not be able to initially verbalize what they're going through, but physically they can. And I think the physical cues are very important. so when you went through what you're going through, if you may, take us through it. How did it happen? And looking back, how was your feeling now that you are more insightful maybe than you were back then?
Great question. But I want to kind of backtrack a little bit because I know earlier you were saying that, hopefully this will stop. There will be like an end to sexual violence. But however, we know that this world is wicked and there's some wicked, wicked people. But the awareness is very, very important, especially helping parents be aware of who their children are around and who they're not around. And then to kind of touch on, I'm going to spin around in a circle for a little bit, but to touch on your topic about saying you were involved with someone who also had dealt with some sexual trauma. So, and that's coming from a male to female's point of view. Now, coming from my point of view, my husband, he was also a victim of child sexual abuse and molestation. So, like, I'm even mindful of what it is that I do and how I address certain things. And then even something as simple as the smell of soap for him. There's a certain soap that he can't even, that just kind of makes his skin crawl, right? And even though his abuse happened 40 years ago, it's like I have to be mindful of that, right? And then from my perspective of actually experiencing it, from a woman's perspective, I guess, is being with a mate who I can completely be vulnerable with and talk to him about these things, and him being my husband, I would say, like, I'm gonna brag on him because he is emotionally available. He is full of, like, fully aware of who he is and all that he is. So it wasn't like him trying to prove anything to me or try to take anything away from me. It was like, no, I'm giving something to you. And because of the different things that I had been through in my life, I tried to self-sabotage. And that's one of the things that people who have been violated sexually, physically, or whatever, sometimes we try to self-sabotage situations so that we don't be vulnerable. But it was like I was almost forced to be vulnerable with him, but in a good way. So when it came down to like sexual acts and stuff, like I was down with that. However, I shied away from affect, like he's super affectionate. And I'm like, it kind of sounds crazy because, like, okay, you can have sex and do this, have sex, but then when it came to like the cuddling and hugging and stuff like that, like, I'm not used to that. And I don't know if that was like a defense mechanism, but again, it's really, really, really bizarre for one to say, okay, I'll give my body to you, but I'm not going to give you anything else. Am I making sense to you?
No, you are, and that's exactly the conversation I had with this person because this was probably at least 10 years ago. This
Okay.
was a while ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I wasn't as informed as I am now. Like I was informed, but if I were to compare terrain today versus terrain 10 years ago, um, there's a lot of things that I was maybe ignorant to, or at least naive to. So for one of the things I would share is that for her, there was a point where she was trying to reclaim her power. And what I mean that is what reminded her of the trauma, she would try to dive headfirst into it to maybe reclaim the power of that. So it kind of made situations a little bit awkward because you know what the person went through. You're trying to be considerate, but this person is saying, "No, I'm okay to do this. I want to do this," and they're being a little bit more aggressive in that way than normal. And you're trying to balance. Okay, what are you trying to understand? Like you said, right? Like this person is letting you know they want this, but you're trying to find a balance. Okay, I want to meet my partner that way, right?
Right.
Halfway. I want to help satisfy them, but you know that, hey, I have my defenses. I'm
Right.
thinking they have their defenses. So, how do we maybe remedy that to say that, okay, they're okay doing this, even though you may not think that they're okay doing it?
With a situation like that, because I remember when I was promiscuous, as a teenager. And I felt like that was my way, like, okay, I'm in control of my body, not realizing that I was doing more damage to it. And it kind of sounds in a similar way of what you're saying, because it's like, even though it may not be, I don't know if it was like a pain threshold or something that she liked or whatever, but it's still like this part of us that's not healed, or we haven't acknowledged that needed to be healed. So our way of trying to fix ourselves is like you said, going head first, do this to me, do this to me rough, or choke me, and it's just all these different things. It's like, do you even like that? And I think I said to you when you were on my show, was that my husband was the first man that I actually gave myself to. And I think once you reach that level of vulnerability, awareness of who you are, awareness of what happened to you, it's a thing called total, what is it, radical acceptance, right? And it's saying, okay, what happened to me, that happened to me, that was not okay, I don't approve it, however, I'm going to acknowledge it because I need to work through this. And something too, because it is something I wrote in my book, Suppressed Wounds, Redemption and Recovery, is it talks about my struggle of hypersexuality. So it's like, here it is. Now you're in this marriage, and say if you and your husband, you guys, you and your partner can't, someone can't perform. So what do you do in those situations? Like, you have to relearn your body, you have to learn their body, you have to try to um, make certain compromises. So it's like, if you're not able to identify and address the things that happened to you, whether it was childhood or adulthood, then you're just gonna, it's like, what are you doing? It's like you're spinning your wheels, you know?
I think that's something that people don't discuss, is that there's sometimes where we try to resolve the trauma by going to the extreme. We become
Right,
hypersexual, right?
right,
And I knew someone that fell into that. Actually, now that I think about it, I know a few people that fell into that, where they would seek out men or women that look like their abuser and try to have sexual encounters with them, but in a dominating way, right? Sometimes they would, like, to the point where some would use them in that way. So let's say, for example, if I was assaulted and my abuser was 6 foot and it was someone that was in construction, I would seek out construction workers to have sex with and say, okay, I'm going to take back my power because I'm going to be able to do this with them. I'm going to do that to them. And I wonder why that doesn't come up as maybe the way that some people are resolving their trauma. Like, what are your thoughts on that?
my thoughts about that is, all you're doing is re-injuring yourself, and then here it is, now you've slept with this person, and now you slept with that person, not to mention like the risk of sexually transmitted diseases, so here it is, you're trying to get revenge, or you're trying to fix yourself or fix what happened to you. We can't go back and change anything. That's just the thing about the past, right? But the past is going to always be a part of, I think that's what you said, Terrain. The past is going to always be a part of us, and we just can't go back and try to erase that or erase this. The best way is to face it, face it head on, get with someone, get with some accountability partners, someone that you can talk to, someone that you can trust. Also, practicing some mindful techniques. There is a book out called The Body Keeps the Score. It's a really, really great read for those who have been victims of sexual abuse or any type of physical abuse, because it really it delves deep into the psychology of things, right? It's more than just, okay, I'm going to, it almost kind of remind me of what was that movie? 50 Shades of Black, or 50 Shades of Gray, or 50 something about the shades, right?
50 Shades of Grey.
50
Yes.
Shades of Gray, yes.
There you go.
And it's like, he I think both of them had went through a lot of, I think he was having issues like mom issues or something like that. Mom, and it's like these are real life issues. These are real life problems. And the only way we can get through it is if we deal with it and we talk about it, write about it, whatever it is that's going to help you get that out and to address it. Because you say, if you do get with the person that you believe like this is my knight in shining armor, or this is my person, this is who God has ordained for me to be with, and you're with this person, like getting married isn't going to just erase everything that you did from your past. And now here it is, you've tried all these things with all these different people, and you try to do this with this person that you're supposed to be with. And what if you poke his eye out or something? I don't know. We just have to be careful. Like, it's comical, but it's sad at the same time, because people can really get hurt. And then you'll think, okay, well, yeah, I didn't practice self-control during these times in my life. And then now you have a partner who cannot, because of maybe medical reasons, cannot um perform the way that they were performing when you guys first got together. So now you're looking elsewhere for sexual gratification, and that can lead to addiction to pornography. It can lead to addiction to masturbation. It can lead to a lot of different things. Um, Pregnancy, again, sexually transmitted diseases. So if we don't find someone to help us get all this out, it's like a purging to get it out. Even if you have to write it down and take your paper, burn it up, it's some way, somehow you got to get it out.
I will agree. It's interesting to see how many people will lose themselves trying to either resolve the trauma. Like there's a lot of people who just fall off the wagon trying to come up with different ways to resolve it. And then there's some other people who maybe shy away from it. This has happened to me. I'm going to isolate myself. And now
Right.
they're pushing away the people that would be supportive. And I always wonder, what are some of the commonalities that impact men and women who have been abused in this way? Like if I look at it from a woman's perspective, I can see in a lot of ways that they would feel powerless because maybe the person is more dominating than them and things like that. Because a lot of times the sexual abuse isn't about the sex itself, it's about the power and the control over that person. And then when I look at it from a male's perspective, and this is probably what women feel as well, I wasn't strong enough to protect myself. I wasn't man enough to do something. And then you have the shame necessarily of that. And I look at those two probably being two big factors, one for women and one for men, that would prevent them from maybe even coming forward, or at the very least, resolving it in a way that is going to be healthy for them and going forward. In regards to yourself, your husband, and some of the people that you work with, what are some of the commonalities that you find maybe um, preventing people from not only resolving it, but helping them to stumble along the way?
I think it's more so, well, for I know for me and some others that I've counseled, would be forgiving themselves, and also relinquishing the fact that, what, that part wasn't my fault. I didn't go out and look for trauma or whatever, you know, because we can't control the actions of other people. We can only control how we respond or react to certain situations. So let me take a segue, and I'm going to share my story, because I think listening to other people's stories helps us again to take the shame off, to say, you know what, oh man, that happened to me too. So yeah. So let me share really quickly. So for me, the first time I remember being touched by a man was age 3. I remember telling my mom that I had this burning sensation when I would go to the bathroom. So my mother, she took me to the doctor, had me examined. I remember bright lights. I can't tell you detail from detail, because that was when I was 3, right? But I remember the bright lights. I remember talking with the doctor. I remember um, being in an office with, I believe, a psychiatrist, because she had like shapes and sizes and different things she wanted me to be able to like identify, I guess, to make sure that the story that I was telling my mom kind of added up to what may have happened to me. I literally still have scars from that incident. And then age 4, my mom had a male friend. He came over, spent the night with us one night. We were all in the bed together. We had a 1 bedroom apartment. We lived in the projects. I am not ashamed of that, because I believe everything happens for a reason. So anyway, we were all in the bed together. It was something that, we had a long day and everybody just kind of like lay down. I believe that if my mom knew what this guy was going to do to me, or if he did this to anybody else, that she wouldn't have allowed him to just lay in the bed with us. So I remember waking up to this grown man. He was licking and touching me between my legs. And at age 4, I remember that sensation, that the sensation felt good. I didn't say anything. I remember him looking up at me and putting his finger over his lip to tell me to not say anything. So I didn't say anything. My mother, she did wake up. When she woke up, she grabbed a machete. It sounds crazy, but she grabbed a machete. She kept a machete underneath her bed and she went to like swing it. And when she went to swing it, I think she nicked him above his eye, but then he was able to jump up. He ran out the door. We didn't have cell phones, we didn't have a house phone. So my mom had grabbed myself and grabbed my sister. We ran out the front door after him, but then I don't know where he ended up going. My mom and I, my mom, myself and my sister, we got into the car. My mom went to the nearest payphone to try to call the police. And then age 5, we moved in with some relatives. Older female cousin introduced me to pornography. So here it is. It's not just the homosexuality, but it's incest as well. And you think that, oh well, I'm just gonna do this to her right now at age 5, and there be no consequences. There's no consequences to what it is that I'm doing. However, that's a lie, because everything that happened to us in our childhood, it comes back up in our adulthood, right? Also at age 5, I started getting high. I was getting high off of aerosol air freshener. This wild stuff, man, wild stuff. I was talking with someone the other day, and she was explaining that when someone has been sexually abused or whatever abuse they're going through, sometimes they turn to substances to try to escape what it is that they're going through. So I think that my 5-year-old self was trying to subconsciously escape what was happening to me from my cousin. But I was getting high, man. I was getting high from age 5 to age 11. So that's 6 years dealing with that type of addiction. Only a couple of years of her having sex with me, us watching pornography. Um, and then it was like countless others. Age 13, I met this guy. He was a friend of the family. And I was 13, he was 19. I was coming out of the 8th grade. Am I going too fast, Terrain? Okay. All right. So, age 13, he and I, we met. Um, I was 13, he was 19. I was coming out of the 8th grade. So it was like the summer in between 8th grade and 9th grade. He had already graduated high school, and he was working. He was working at a bank, but still, he was a grown man. I was a child. So my mother found a letter that I had addressed to him. And when she looked through the letter, she seen that it was very sexually explicit, because he would ask me to write him letters. He lived in a different state. So when he was visiting family, that's how we came together, right? We never had sex. It was just more so of him like fondling me and letting me know how much he wanted to be with me. Um, and when he went back home, when he returned to the state where he was living, that's when, and again, we were keeping contact with each other. I would sneak and call him. He would tell me, call me. He would say, write me letters, all these different things, right? And I thought that I had a boyfriend. I thought that we were in a relationship with each other. However, when my mom found the letter, my mom and my stepdad found the letter, they contacted him. He denied everything. He said that I was lying, that I was crazy, and that broke my heart. So what I did was I decided, you know what, I'm going to find a boyfriend. So when I entered the 9th grade, I had turned 14 in August. And I say, I'm going to find the most skimpiest outfit I can find. the type of outfit that your mom would be like, that's too tight on your butt, you need to take that off, put something else on. But my plan, my end goal was to get a boyfriend. So I remember sneaking out of the house. My dad, he worked the night shift. My mom, she always went to bed early. 9 o'clock, she was out. So I snuck out first night, ran into these guys. I want to say there were probably one, two, three, four, five, probably 7 men. And that was my first actual sexual experience, like the penetration and stuff like that. Like I literally lost my virginity to strangers. And in that moment, I developed an addiction because I liked the attention. I felt like I had control over my body, at this time, because it was like all these random people, cousins, and other close relatives wanted to touch on me and stuff like that. So this was a time when I felt like I had control, but I didn't have control. It was an addiction. I went from the aerosol to a sexual addiction and sneaking out, having sex with multiple men. Some nights it'll be 2 men, some nights it'll be 20. And I didn't care. I wasn't scared. I just was out there, just wilding out, right? But it was age 15. Age 15 is when I truly believe that I was regenerated by the Holy Spirit, or I surrendered my life to the Lord because I was living a double life. Even though I was out there walking the streets, having sex with random men, I was in an abstinence program the whole time. I was actively involved in church programs. I mean, even it was so it the 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 deception was so bad that I want to say the person over the abstinence program had me be like almost this, she wanted me to be the spokesperson for it. And I did that well. I pretended well because where we were actually meeting at, that was the same location where I would meet the men at night. And sometimes I would be in the abstinence program, my 14-year-old self in the abstinence program, and the guys that I was sleeping with at night, they would come over and like tap on the window, tap on the door to signal me to come back that night, you know. So that's why I truly believe that God still has me here for a reason, to go back and just pull these people, these other people up to say, hey, if he did it for me, he can do it for you. That there's a plan for your life. If you're still here, there's a plan for your life. And we can get through anything. We can recover from anything. And all it takes is just the vulnerability to be open with, even if it's just one person, and you don't even have to identify yourself, but get it out, whatever, just get it out. And then to fast forward, in my adulthood, there were two people. One person I went to school with, we were really cool. Went over to his house just to check on him and spend a little time with him. He ended up raping me. And then to make it so bad, he was contacting me, calling me constantly, 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 like after it happened, just to say, can he please just do it one more time? And this time he would take his time, you know, like some wild stuff. But again, I'm still here. And I want people to know, like, that happened to you. That's not who you are, but it happened to you, and that you can overcome these things, man. I don't know. You got some questions to Rain?
No, I look at that entire breakdown of your childhood as
Yes.
a chapter in your life. And I look at everyone's past as it's just, we're all characters in a book,
Yes.
right? And sometimes we look at our childhood as something that will define us
Mm-hmm.
and we can't make changes from it. And I always tell people that your past is your past. Is it going to impact your future? Yes. Are
Yes.
people going to remember it and potentially hold it against you? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Can you overcome it? Yes. Right? Because a lot of times our past is just a start of our either our hero arc or a villain arc. That's the way I look at it. So when you share that, I know a lot of people's going to look at, it's going to hear that story and be like, you know what, Kristina, you went through a whole lot and you shared a whole lot. And there's going to be some tough questions. One of the first questions that's probably going to be tough is like, where were the parents during this? Because you are a very young child, right? Where are the support system? Where are the family members? Where's the community? I remember a
Right.
time I was raised by my grandmother, and I didn't have my parents growing up, but I had her and I had the community. And when I hear stories, Christina, like that you go through or similar stories, I think we have failed that child as a community, because no child should be left in a vulnerable situation like that to develop these kinds of addiction, because you went from household products to products outside of the household, which is sex. And there's a lot of people who are abused. And when it's happening, because they're so young and they don't understand what's going on, it does feel good because their body is reacting to it. And then they have a choice, right? And sometimes that choice is taken from them because they may not know what they're doing, but it feels good. And then it continues to feel good. And then, you know, it's usually by someone that's in a trusting situation. And then you believe them when you say, okay, don't tell anyone. Looking back on what you went through and how you were able to overcome it, how proud are you of yourself that you're able to do that?
Oh, I'm very proud. I am very, very, very proud of myself. And one of the exercises I have in the Broken Girl Whole Woman is to write a letter to your younger self. And I think for the first time after all these years, I want to say 30 plus years, I was finally able to let that 3-year-old Kristina cry. I was finally able to say, to stop making excuses for certain individuals, you know, and I was finally able to say, you know what, that was not my fault. So I'm proud of myself. Every day is a journey. There's still some struggles I may have here and there. There's still some thoughts and things that may pop up. But that's why having a support network is extremely, extremely important. Because if I gave myself over to those negative thoughts, I probably wouldn't be here today. There were times when I contemplated on taking my own life. From starting at age 12, I was trying to use a knife to just end my life. you know um and then most recently, probably like 2.5, almost 3 years ago, I thought about it, just with all these different, it was just overwhelming thoughts and different things that was coming into my mind. And I've experienced some very, very dark days, but to be able to come up out of those dark days, sometimes it's every day. It's one foot before the other. It's when I go back to my Christian roots of picking up your cross daily. Like sometimes I don't feel like picking up that cross. So keep it on the ground, and that's just being honest. But again, I am proud. I'm proud of me.
Yeah, religion can definitely be that safety net. And I look at the faith, doesn't matter what faith you have, what religion you are, everything that you just described about it, I believe is a true spirit of the good word, right? When you're not able to carry your own load, you rely on God to help you along. When you need that conversation and that shoulder to cry on, or that ear for someone to listen to, your congregation is there for you. I truly believe that is the essence of religion. Like, forget everything else that we hear, right? Like, they have their own issues as well. But when you strip that away and you look at what is supposed to be, it's supposed to be that. And I will always go back to, it is one of the pillars of the foundation of a community, and that is the family unit, religion, and those around you to support you. Those are the three pillars that make up the community. And in a lot of ways, it's a shame that so many children, especially, have these adverse childhood experiences, which leads to sexual promiscuity. It leads to teenage childbirth. It leads to dark thoughts of unaliving yourself. It leads to so many of these things. Whereas if we just said, okay, we need to be more involved with our children, more aware of our children, to understand what they're going through and how we need them. Because I think sometimes parents forget that the way you think your child needs you is not necessarily the way your child actually needs you. You have to have that conversation. And just like when you're in a marriage or you're dating someone, you have to have that conversation. But take it like religion, right? Like, what's one of the first things that they tell you? Communication with God. That is the foundation of everything. Keep an open line of communication with God. So if you're going to keep it with God, keep it with your man, keep it with your woman, keep it with your children, keep it with your community. Because children shouldn't be experiencing some of the things that you've experienced. So when you're working like with these women, are you able to pinpoint the genesis of what caused their trauma and help them to realize that, as you mentioned, it's not their fault, and two, there is a way out from it?
In some cases, I am able to identify the genesis. However, I am realizing that, in order to be an effective, just in my opinion, in order to be an effective coach or an effective counselor, sometimes that like disclosure or transparency will help kind of nurture that out of them, you know. I know I've had individuals who, it might just be a one-time conversation after I share my testimony and share my story, because I've been sharing my story for almost 20 years now. And when I share it, sometimes I may have someone write me a little note, and but then it's like they allow the shame to keep them from completely opening up. And I'm like, I'm not going to bite you, but I can't force it out of you either. And I noticed with, let me see, I want to say this about a man, right? This one guy that I know, and right now he's in a situation where he's with multiple women. And what I asked him one day, I said, listen, after you've inserted yourself, after maybe ejaculated, or you've come into all these different women, do you feel complete? And he said no, with tears in his eyes. He's still searching, he's still seeking, and we're all still searching and seeking for something. It's just developing the tools that we need in order to find exactly what it is that we are looking for. And that's part of the genesis. That's part of when I'm able to help individuals in the coaching sessions to navigate from, okay, this happened, okay, age 5, what's going on now? You know, Here it is, you're 50 or you're 60 or you're 80. And every time you talk about the situation, you tear up. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. But it just shows me that there's some part of you that's still unhealed or unresolved.
That's so true, because we express it in so many different ways, thinking that it's helping us to resolve the issue, but it's actually not. We're just masking it, or in a lot of ways replacing it with something else. And when it comes to sex, that is so easy, because now we're in a society where it's everywhere, right? Even if you don't even have to go out of your way a lot of times for it to be there, right? It's easily available. And I think the shame maybe of it or the guilt of it is very easily hidden. You're still going to feel it, but a lot of times we don't feel it before we actually do the act. We feel it afterwards when we can think about it. And I think maybe that's why so many people get trapped in it, because if they could continue to distract themselves from realizing what they're actually doing, then they're going to continue doing what they're doing without ever considering the consequences. And as we close, Christina, what's some tips that you want to give for our audience today to ensure that they can still live a very productive, healthy life, get married, and still be happy, even though they've been victimized in that way?
Yes, I mean, I think I've been sharing this throughout this interview, is definitely finding someone that you can talk to, that you can be vulnerable with, to get that out whichever way that you can. Again, you can write it down. Everyone isn't as bold to write a tell-all book, so I wouldn't advise you to do that, especially if you're not ready to talk about it, because there's going to be a lot of backlash. But I would say find someone that that you trust, and that you're around this person, and it's just something about this person that just makes you feel safe. And I believe that person is out there. And then you'll just know, because you'll feel it. Everything is energy, right? You're gonna feel how that person reacts and responds to you. The other thing would be, if you can get into counseling, that would be good as well. Look up different YouTube videos about overcoming sexual trauma or any type of traumatic situation. YouTube University is really, really great with certain things, and check out different podcasts, Behind the Shades, and I have Redemption and Recovery, When Suppressed Wounds Begin to Heal. So do that. Also, just be in the moment. I love to teach others to understand the importance of present time consciousness. It's just being in that moment. Some things we may have to relive, but write it out, scream it out, cry it out, poop it out. I don't know, whatever way that is going to get out of you. The more you try to avoid it, the stronger it's going to come, and those triggers are going to come. You have to be equipped to deal with those triggers, the triggers of your trauma. Um, I don't know what else to say. If you need someone to talk to, want to reach out to me, I can do a free consultation with you all. You can text the word coach to 202-888-7362. Again, that's 202-888-7362. I recently released another book. It's titled Forgiving Yourself. So that's really awesome. A resource, that's a free resource, a free download that I can also give you. And also, again, especially if you were a minor, it was not your fault. That it's unfortunate that there are adults attracted to children, but again, that's not your fault.